Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ask Joe Palmetto, Ask a Lawyer Anything, every day, 8 o'clock on Wednesdays. East Coast time. I got to put that in my title because a lot of people are hitting me up or asking me when this is. And it's East Coast time. I'm in the great city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Midwest, East Coast. Everybody seems to I mean, the funny thing about Pittsburgh is that in the city is Pittsburghers sort of have a bit of a conflict. I don't know if it's a conflict, but let's just say in this city, we don't know whether to look to New York City as sort of our, I don't know, maybe our parent figure, or Chicago, right? Chicago's on the Midwest, on the lake. New York is the headquarters of the East Coast on the Atlantic Ocean. And Pittsburgh's kind of in the middle. And a lot of Pittsburghers like to think that we have more in common with the city of New York than we do with the city of Chicago. Now, my opinion, I think Pittsburgh has more in common with Chicago. It's a big Midwest city on a lake, industrial. New York City is just really its own animal. So I don't think the city of Pittsburgh has that much in common with New York City. Waiting for everybody to come in. Live tonight, going to answer legal questions, legal issues, give legal information. Last week had a big audience. Takes a little time to warm up, but if anybody's got any questions, let me drop my phone number down here too. 412-593-4529. You can call me. You can call in if you want to go live on the show, and I'll answer your questions. I got one here from Jamie Brown. What are the possibilities of a petition or something to get the conversation rolling on overturning the Smith-Mundt Act? Well, Jamie, I need to know what that act is. Let's look it up because I am not the Smith-Mundt Act. Smith-Mundt Act. Okay. Maybe I can speak on this. Anybody, if you just arrived and you want to call in with a question, let me know, or just call in. I posted the number. The Smith-Mundt Act, the U.S. Information and Educational Exchange Act in 1948, popularly called the Smith-Mundt Act, basic legislative authorization for propaganda activities conducted by the State Department, sometimes called public diplomacy. 2012, the act was modernized, and which was contained within the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2013. The broadcast will be available. Origins of the bill, congressional concerns. This is interesting. The act prohibits domestic access to information intended for foreign audiences. Prior to this, State Department. Jamie, let me ask you, do you have any specific complaints here about the Smith-Mundt Act? Several significant leaders to testify in support of the bill. The Pearl High and former teacher Carl Mundt, which was an evolution from the bill. The State Department's activities were ongoing. Bill passed, but due to was Senator. Okay, what's the point of the bill? Congress harbored significant reservations about empowering the State Department. The legislation was introduced. The legislation authorizes the State Department to communicate to audiences outside the borders of the United States through broadcasting, face-to-face contacts, publishing books, magazines. So, here's my thoughts on that, Jamie. It seems like this is a law that allows the United States government to spread propaganda to foreign countries. Number one, the United States government needs no act or law, okay, to spread propaganda within the United States itself, okay? The CIA, the government is going to have ways of doing that. Oftentimes the media backs them up. But the government is going to push and going to promote narratives that it wants to promote. Okay. We have a free press. Kim says Smith Munn is why we have fake news. Okay, but all right, let's think about this. Let's say, for instance, that the government, and I have no doubt that the government is pushing a narrative, okay, is the United States government is pushing a certain narrative, pushing certain types of news and content out there into the country and in foreign countries. Number one, let's first recognize that every country in the world does this exact same thing. Every country in the world every country's government is going to push information, propaganda, narratives, storylines, news that they want to highlight within their own country and outside the world. Okay. So everyone is doing it. Number two, the government pushes a narrative. All right. But especially with the rise of the internet. I mean, I'm here right now talking directly to my audience. There's thousands of YouTubers out there. With the rise of the internet, okay, so let's say you have some government propaganda that's seeping out there. All right, you also have literally hundreds, thousands, if not tens of thousands of independent journalists, creators, all out there pushing a narrative, pushing a story, creating videos, creating memes, content, websites, okay, to push whatever narrative that they want to push. So Jamie, you have a point. Everyone is doing it. Does that make it right? Not necessarily. No, that obviously doesn't make it right. But what I'm saying is that the government's ability to propagandize a population and propagandize a foreign population, in my opinion, in 2019 is highly diluted and is much more difficult for the government itself to push a narrative than it was 50, 100, 150 years ago. Because 50 years ago, you had 2 or 3 news stations the government could easily control and influence. They could feed them stories, and those stories would be repeated. It was very easy for the government to manufacture consent. Noam Chomsky wrote a book on this, Manufacturing Consent. And the government can still do it. The government can still do it. But now you have thousands of independent voices who push back. I wouldn't be surprised if the government publishes and puts fake stories and fake news. There's no doubt that independent creators, groups, companies also push and publish fake news. Now you put the question, does that make it right? No. In my personal opinion, it depends. We would have to analyze each. Is it okay for the government to push certain stories and narratives? I believe that it is, and I don't have a problem with it. And it happens in every country. Now, I'm sure there are certain instances of narrative news or pieces of content that they put out, which I would say are wrong. But by and far, there's so much. I mean, there's so much content out there nowadays. I seriously doubt the government's ability to control the narrative exists even close to what it did 20 years ago, let alone 50 years ago. In my opinion, the establishment, the government out there, they didn't want Donald Trump to be president. A lot of people within the government did everything they could to stop him from becoming president. Okay, for better or worse, right or wrong, this is an agnostic opinion here on Trump. All right, but Trump became president despite, in many ways, the full force and efforts of the United States government and/or media. So. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I think it's an issue. We'd have to talk about specific pieces of news, content, or propaganda for me to say whether it's right or wrong. For the government to be able to go out there and tell a story, I don't have a problem with that. Does anybody have any specific legal issues? And would anybody like to call in? 412-593-4529. Let me get some callers. Today I'm dressed down. I'm wearing my Air Force shirt. You know, some of the people who comment on my videos believe that I'm a member of the bar, which means I'm, as an attorney, that I'm dedicated to the Queen of England. But that's just not true. That's not true at all. I never met the Queen, and I never took an oath to her. How long does a settlement from a car accident usually take? The accident was a little over 3 years ago. Tom, thank you for this question. This is something I have a lot of experience in. So the key word there is usually. How long does a settlement from a car accident usually take? I would say there's the main factor in how long that's going to take is going to be the severity of the injury. So if you have very severe injuries, it's generally going to take a lot longer. I've seen cases sit for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Cases can go on for a very long time if there's major injuries. Minor injuries, if you have an enterprising attorney who works their ass off, you might be able to settle a case within a couple of months. And you may even be able to get that case to an arbitration or to a hearing if they won't settle within a matter of months, 3 to 6 months. So what kind of injuries are we talking, Tom? If you give me a little more information on the car accident, I might be able to tell you more. You know, I work on personal injury cases, and I've been so busy that I've had some that have sat longer than I would like for them to sit. Now it's a good thing to be busy, but I feel really bad for my clients. But some of my cases I've moved along very quickly. I've gotten settlements within weeks, if not months. So Tom, let's take, for example, maybe some whiplash, a minor concussion, not too much treatment, 3 to 6 months, maybe 9 months. There we go. See, you said here, back injury, shoulder surgery. So shoulder surgery, that's going to take longer. One of the reasons is you have to wait and see exactly how the injury is going to play out. Like, so you had surgery. Did you have a quick and full recovery? Are you still having complications with it? So on a deep medical issue, you don't want to settle that case. You wouldn't even want to settle that case until a couple of years gone by so that you have a perspective on how serious the injury was. So Tom, to answer your question, it's not that unusual for a case to take 3 years. And now that you told me surgery, that sounds reasonable. One of the other problems is when you list, so personal injury attorneys will try to settle a case, then they'll do the discovery, which means gather all the medical records, do all the depositions. That alone can take 1 year to 2 years. And then when you file a case, many of the county courts in the United States are so busy, you won't get a trial date for another year. So, Tom, if I were you, I would just call your attorney, ask them for an opinion on when he thinks he can settle the case. Ask them if they think they're going to list it for trial. Ask them what type of discovery is still outstanding, because sometimes attorneys get lazy on the discovery. If there needs to be depositions, a whole bunch of stuff. So those are some things you can ask your attorney. Let me put it right here. So I'm going to write this in here. Is discovery complete? And discovery is the exchanging of evidence between the parties. So You've got an injured person and the person who hurt that person. This is true of every lawsuit, essentially. Um, the person who was hurt brought the lawsuit is the plaintiff. The person being sued is the defendant. Both sides have to give each other all the evidence, essentially, that they're going to use at trial so that each side is prepared. It also actually helps to settle the case because then each lawyer can look over all the evidence and say, you know what, his injuries are serious. We don't think he's lying. So is discovery complete? What else, Tom? So you want to ask about discovery. When is trial? How long for a trial date? You might want to do a mediation. You can ask him, can we mediate? And when do you think the case will settle? I would ask your attorney all that stuff, Tom, and see what he says. See what he says. Okay. I got a few here. Can a person be trespassed from a public space if they are not violating the law? Tay's auditors laugh like hell. You're my man. Thanks for the question. Here's what I do know about public spaces is you trespass. Yeah. So some there are, well, so first of all, public entities can own private spaces, right? So a water company has a plant, they can fence it. It's a public company. Okay, you can't just go in here and that. All right, that's still technically private property. When you're asking me about public space, what I'm talking about is like a park or a public forum, which could be something like a square in your downtown area, certain piazzas, certain, roads, street corners, intersections, say right outside the courthouse. Okay. These are going to be your public spaces. The government is allowed to set on certain public spaces, allowed to set reasonable boundaries for when people can be on those public spaces. All right. Now that's generally not going to be true of like roads or sidewalks. Okay. But like a park, for example, a park is a public area. But it has certain hours. There's only certain hours that you can be in that park. And the government can set the keyword is reasonable limitations on when people are allowed to go into those areas. So if you're in a park area after hours, I believe, yes, you could be charged with trespassing. I haven't dealt with that. Well, I actually had a case where, PD or City Hall. Let me get to that in a second. But I had a case where some individuals were at a baseball field. Okay, there's a park area and a baseball field. All right, and there was a concession stand. And what the allegations were is that these guys, it's kind of funny, broke into a concession stand, went inside and stole all the candy. Now, they may have been looking for money, but they took a bunch of candy bars and Snicker wrappers. When the police searched their car, they found the Snickers wrappers. And that's one of the ways that they brought this case. They were charged with trespass, but they broke into a structure. That's a higher grading of your trespass crimes. That could be a felony or a high misdemeanor. But being in a park area after hours, you can be charged with a low level sort of, a low level trespassing charge. Police department. Oh, PD or City Hall. I gotta, this is a good question, and considering my channel, I should know the answer. I'm going to have to look into this. I mean, can a person walk into these places and sort of hang around? Absolutely. I mean, if you're walking on the street and you want to go and you want to walk into your police department and sit down for 5 minutes and look around, okay, yes. Can you stay there for an unreasonable amount of time? I honestly don't know. I honestly do not know. Maybe somebody in the audience, Pat or Eric, has an opinion on this. I do know. I did research that in those areas. If you're First Amendment auditors. I did a video on this where guy went into probation office and he actually wasn't arrested for running video in the probation office. He was arrested for violating his probation. In most of those public areas, you are allowed to video. I would bet that you're allowed to be in there for a short period of time. Once you're commanded to leave, you could be. It's possible they could charge you with something. I'm really not sure. Police are public servants, allegedly. I don't explain color of law and legalized wording. My interest is 1A auditors. Okay, so I got a divorce question here. If you really want me to prioritize your question, call me. I like to get phone calls. I got a question about. I got a lot of stuff here. But I explained the law on that in that video. I think I remember researching this. I believe that you can video in most of those places. Now, I know one thing you can't do is when you're getting into, so you walk into a police department and all the cops, they're going to be sitting back there behind the window or whatever. Video, if you get too close to confidential information or private spaces of individuals, that can be illegal. But just being in those public and general videotaping around there is not going to be illegal. When it becomes trespassing, if you stay in there, I'm honestly not sure. But I got to look into that. I say that about a lot of these questions, and then time just consumes my life. Tom, the insurance company finally want to get something done. Still doesn't have a timetable. He's hoping the end of the year. Still won't give any numbers. Hello, this is Joe Palmetto.
Eric French, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing well. I had a small emergency with my little dog this afternoon, but we're getting it sorted out.
That's good. Is he okay, or he or she okay?
It's a she, and she's had back problems in the past, and I went to help her up on the bed, and she yiked and cried. She never does that, so I took her to the chiropractor because my daughter works there, and he straightened her out, and I got her home, and on the floor by my bed is a ground hornet. She was getting stung the whole time.
Wow. A ground hornet?
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is. That's like a hornet that hangs out on the ground?
Yeah, they make their nest in the ground.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
But anyway, my question is, can I take ground hornets and throw them in the drive-thru at the police department?
Can you do what? Take ground hornets and what?
Throw them through the drive-thru at the police department.
Let me think about that for I'm gonna say that's a bad idea, Eric. I think that's a bad idea.
No, actually, my question is this. I don't know if you got around to seeing it. There's a Real World Police channel had Ty Dolla $ign get arrested. He was in a limo with Skrillex, and they did like a 3-part series of his arrest, okay?
Uh-huh.
The guy, the arresting officer, I call him Hightower, big, tall, black dude, okay?
Okay.
He was nice enough. He seemed very proud of his scalp, but he wanted to get in the shoes of all these guys. and he told him, sit on my knee. Sit on my knee as he was patting him down. Sit on my knee. And I thought, you know what? I don't think I would do that. I don't think I would sit on this dude's knee, even if he demanded it. I don't think he can force me to touch him. You know?
Yeah.
I thought it was a demeaning thing to say. Typically, I am definitely on the side of law enforcement. You know, to a degree.
Sure.
I just wondered, is there a legal precedent of a police officer not being able to force you to touch him?
Well, I do know, Eric, you're probably aware of this as well. You know, there's been many lawsuits involving, you know, male officers patting down female officers and, let's say, groping them, right? And so, you know, they've tried to adapt, right? They'll try to call a female officer in, this and that. Yeah, I mean, I think that would fall in. I don't do that area law specifically, but yeah, I mean, if it's unreasonable and he doesn't have any, you know, immediate necessity to make that type of demand, I do think it would be reasonable to refuse that demand or to ask for him to, you know, go about his search in another way. I mean, if he wants to get into your shoes, he doesn't have to have you sit on his lap to go, you know, sit on his knee. It's bizarre.
Yeah, that's basically where it was. He would stand behind him, and he was so tall, he would just bend his knee up, and, you know, to make this guy, and not that he should have any special treatment, but he's a star to a lot of people. I have no idea who he is, but to a lot of people, these music guys are stars, they're heroes, and to make him sit on his knee, you know,
right?
It just felt wrong, man.
Yeah, sit on. So just spend too much time on this. But he was the officer sitting down, and then he was like, "Sit on my knee."
No, he was standing up.
But he like bent his knee and then told these guys to sit on his knee and take their shoes off while sitting on his knee.
Yes, one for each shoe. Yes.
Yeah, that seems like some unnecessary physical contact and some, you know, that. Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds like it's just the goal there is to demean them. So that may potentially be a lawsuit. I don't know the exact legal standard for those types of lawsuits, but you know how it is. I mean, if you refuse, you refuse the command, this and that, you don't know what they're going to do. But I would personally, if I was in that situation, and just I think a lot of it has to do with how you would say, officer, if your goal is to get into my shoes, I'd be happy to sit on the floor, present some alternatives, happy to sit here and there. But it's improper for me to sit on your knee like a creep, dude.
Right. And I think it would be easier for someone to do that if they didn't have any meth in their pocket.
Right. Well, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you got all the shit, yeah, exactly. But, they can, I mean, if they're about to take someone to jail and they already have probable cause and they're going to make an arrest, they're going to get a full pat down, a full body search when they go into the jail. So there's that. Getting into their shoes at the crime scene seems a pretty extreme to me, but I don't know. This. All right,
well, thanks, man. I certainly don't want to take up any more time than necessary.
Thanks for calling in, Eric. I'm glad that you gave me a call. I'm glad to hear your dog's doing okay, and yeah, I'm glad we finally got to talk. Maybe we can talk again.
I'll think of another question for next week.
All right. Thanks, Eric. All right. Bye-bye. The funny thing about that question is this officer is doing this to, like Eric said, like, I guess this guy is a rap star, a music star, a television star. So he's got loads of money. So you're like, dude, you may be getting off on taking that sort of action, but you may have a lawsuit coming your way, man. I mean, especially when someone's rich. All right. So Does he take? I got a fake. I got false flag. There's a divorce question in there. So my kid's going through a divorce. Both cars in both names. Hubby's car is 3 months behind. How can we avoid a repo? That's a good question. I mean, I don't do divorce, but I think that you like, if you really, I mean, look, if the car's not getting paid off, that company who has the lien on the car, they're going to be entitled to take it. So one thing you could do here, and I'm not saying this is the right, or I mean, if you have a shit ton of money, you could pay for the car until the divorce is done and finalized, and then sue the hubby for the amount that you spent while paying for that car, if what you're trying to do is save the value of that car. Or if so that's one way to do it, is try to pay for the car regardless, and then hope that you get it back in the divorce. Honestly, I mean, both cars in both names. I don't think judges, you usually got to get to a hearing before a judge is going to issue an order requiring somebody to sign a car over to the other person. And that can take months. It can take a really long time. You'll want to check your local family court laws. You may be able to file a motion to get a judge to issue some sort of order on that, requiring somebody to pay, or if the car gets repoed, he can put in writing that it sounds like the wife, my kid is going through a divorce, but have the judge put something in an order recognizing that the husband's the one who wasn't paying the car, and that needs to be taken into account at the end of the day. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. I'm on here. I'm trying to help and have some fun. Child support in New York State stopped paying 1983. Child was born in 1982. I'm out of the country. I want to go to Guam. Will there be any surprises waiting for me at Guam immigration? Oh, man, I don't know. I mean, so I'll start with what I do know is that, if child support is not paid, and every state's laws are different. Again, child support's not paid, a warrant can be issued. Now, a warrant from 1983 being executed in Guam, it feels like a stretch to me. But, the FBI and law enforcement all over this country, they communicate with each other. I really don't know, man. I really don't know. You need to talk to a New York family law attorney. And the weird thing about Guam is that's a U.S. territory. But I imagine they cooperate with law enforcement, and in regards to, that's another important thing is some not every state has extradition with other states, and the territory of Guam, they may not want to be extraditing you to New York. So, really, if I were you, if you really want to go, man, I would, Mr. Awaya, I'd pay a couple $100 to a family law attorney just to have in New York, just to have a conversation with him and see what's up. And you may want to call an attorney in Guam if there even are any. I mean, Guam's just an Air Force base, man. That Anderson Air Force Base. I'm sure there's attorneys there, but there probably aren't many. So I were you, I would call an attorney in New York, call an attorney in Guam, and see what the laws are in regards to extradition from Guam. Because I can't give you that answer, but I do know I have clients being held on child support detainers in Pittsburgh right now. So I mean, you can definitely go to jail. Actually, Guam's a big city. Okay. See, you know more than I do. I did have some, I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, which isn't that close, but in a wider sense isn't that far from Guam. But yeah, a lot of my buddies went to Anderson Air Force Base down there, and I had some Guamanian friends. Some of my best friends in the Air Force were from Guam, and my one really good friend from basic training, he's still in the Air Force, and so I think a decent number of Guamanian citizens end up joining the United States military, which is awesome. All right, looks like you'll be bunking. Joe, is there a database of warrants? Yeah, the FBI, there is, Pat. I don't have access to it. But there is there a database of warrants? There definitely is, that the police use, and I forget what it's called, and it's run by the FBI. However, the extradition, certain states, like I believe Virginia, Pat, doesn't extradite to like any state. The states themselves have to have extradition agreements for a warrant to be executed on you in another state. Now, a federal warrant is different. A family law warrant is not going to be a federal warrant. If you knew the county, I'm sure you do, if you know the county where this warrant may have come out of, you could contact a local attorney and they could look into whether or not there's a warrant issued. I can contact sheriff's offices. I know how to find out if there's a warrant out on my client in Allegheny County. Generally, a sheriff's office is going to have information on all the warrants in the county, and even the jail can be a resource for that. Are YouTube videos considered? But there's an FBI database of warrants. There absolutely is. Yeah, NCIC, Kelly, keyword. Thank you. That's it. That's an FBI run database. I'm surprised he got out of the country with back child support. Well, here's the thing: is child support, at least in Allegheny County, the other party has to be aggressive about it. They have to go to hearings. They have to ask the judges to issue warrants. At least in Pennsylvania, I don't believe a warrant will automatically be issued. But it's possible that if, there weren't any efforts on the one party to collect, that the courts didn't take any action. I'm not 100% on that. Yeah, NCIC, absolutely. That's what police officers are looking up whenever they pull someone over. They can access NCIC from the computers in their vehicles, and they can see if you have a warrant out. And that's how a lot of warrants are executed. YouTube videos considered patented type stuff. Yes, they are. They are intellectual property. I researched this a lot for my own videos. So you can't just straight up copy and use someone else's video. You can get a copyright strike through YouTube, and they could potentially be sued in a civil court. But if you alter the video enough or do things like make commentary over the video, cut it up, add your own graphics, it can be altered enough to become your video. And if that is the case, you generally cannot get a copyright strike, and you would probably beat most lawsuits. But yeah, if somebody copies a video exactly, they can get in trouble. If someone copies certain images exactly, they can get in trouble. The same is true of sound or music. So videos, music, anything can potentially be copywritten, and you can get a copyright strike from YouTube itself. But you can also litigate those in a court of law. Okay. NCI, Kelly, also most states have court records that are accessible for the public. Yeah, that's a good point, Kelly. At least in Pennsylvania, it doesn't have access to warrants. So you can see your cases. Now, funny enough, some of the case, I know how to read a case docket on a criminal case, and I can usually tell if someone has a warrant or not. It's not printed on all the dockets. Every county does their dockets a little bit differently, but you can see outstanding cases, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, depending on the county, he may be able to access those records online, at least see what's happened with the child support. If there's child, the federal government can stop people from going anywhere. Yeah, that may be true in that case too. I really don't know. Generally, most tricky. Yeah, I don't have all the answers, SoCal man. I'm here. I'm just trying to give information and help people. Some things I'll have, real clear-cut answers on, and some things I won't. That's all. Glad she states territories to be. You worked 5 years at the IRS. Hey, man, can you call the IRS up and get me get me some help? Cut me a break on the taxes. Eric, listen, man. I got to start drinking beer at these things, and if I do it on the weekend, I will. I basically consume 3 types of drinks throughout the day. I drink water, I drink coffee, and I drink this. And who knows, maybe they'll copyright strike me. I used to be really, really against Diet Coke. And like the last 5 or 6 years, I've become really, really addicted to it. I just like carbonated beverages. Like after I eat something, I like the feeling of drinking a carbonated beverage in my stomach. I don't know if it's, I don't know what the science is on digestion, but if I feel like it helps me digest, at the very least, it makes me, I like it. I like the feeling. So I drink a lot of carbonate. I drink coffee because I need caffeine, and I drink water, and I drink Diet Coke, and I do drink beer, and I drink liquor, and I drink wine. Not every day, not every weekend, but I'm a fan of all 3. So if we do this if I do one of these on a weekend, let's have some beers. But tonight, let's have a sip. A little Diet Coke in my mason jar. Get carbonated water. Diet stuff is cancer. Yeah, it causes cancer. I know, man. I know. And I was in Italy recently, and I was drinking a lot of carbonated water, and I need to buy it more often. I love the combination. I'm seriously addicted to this stuff, but you're right. I need to work my way off it. It's bad. It's bad. Know anything about patents? If you have a great idea, but don't know how to execute it, how do you talk to someone without getting it protected first? Kelly, there are patent attorneys out there that specifically do this. Interesting fact you may not know: in order to become a patent attorney, you have to take a special bar exam. It's called the patent bar. So you have one bar for literally everybody else, and then there's a specific patent bar, which may actually work nationwide. If Pat's on there, he might be able to answer that question. But patent attorneys, we were jealous of them in law school because we knew as soon as they got out, they were going to be making 6 figures. They're highly sought after. To be a patent attorney, you have to have an undergraduate degree in a certain scientific field. A gentleman that I knew was a civil engineer in the Army, and then he got his patent license to be a patent attorney, and he was making a shit ton of money right out of law school. Me, I have a political science degree with a minor in Japanese and an Asian studies certificate, mostly on East Asian history. And no, I cannot be a patent attorney. But if you have an idea and you think it's great and you really want to get it patented, go and you got to talk to a patent attorney, but you are going to pay for it. One thing you may consider doing if you're talking about a product, Kelly, and like I've done a bunch of weird internet stuff, but trying to sell products. But anyway, yeah, I've done other weird internet stuff too. But you might want to create the product, try selling it, try and see if it catches on, and then patent it. If you don't have the money to patent something right up front. I mean, you got billionaires who just patent all kinds of shit because they have the money to do it. I recently, speaking of patents, I recently bought stock in Texas Instruments, who used to make, the calculators that we used in the 80s and 90s. And one of the reasons I bought them is they own like 80,000 some patents. Like they are patenting machines. So kamikaze lawyer, he only gets one case. Shit, man, that'd be rough. You know what I'm saying? Kelly, yeah, you might want to like make the product, see if it sells, and then consider patenting it. And you're right. Well, okay, maybe it's too late, but then again, maybe it's not. Like you're already going to be ahead in the process if you've developed this product. I only say that because I don't know what it costs to hire a patent attorney. I imagine you're not going to get away with it for less than $5,000. I mean, I don't know, maybe a couple of $1,000. I know it's a lot of money. And whoa, a samurai sword from World War II. That is awesome, Eric. That's awesome. I'm jealous. My grandpa had, someone in the family sold them, but he had a bunch of, he had like a what was the gun the Nazis had? A Ruger. He actually had a handgun, a Nazi handgun, and he had a couple other things like some of the pins and stuff that they wore on their uniforms, stuff like that. Little Amanda B. I mostly do criminal defense and personal injury and employment law, though I do get into a little bit of everything. Yeah, it was a Luger, Taze. I seen it when I was a kid. Unfortunately, someone in the family sold it because people were willing to buy that stuff. But he had a bunch of stuff. Kelly, Joe will vouch for me I don't know what I'm vouching for, but yeah, Taze is the man. Kelly, I don't know how to create it though. It's an industrial machine. I struggle with hanging a picture. Network, find someone. That's good advice. That's good advice. Yeah, you got it. Nice. If the person wants, there's a way to find out what forms to file patents. The U.S. is one of the best for this. Yeah, it can be done without an attorney. I just know that there are a lot of attorneys out there who do it, right? It's just like forming an LLC or a business. People call me to do that all the time. I'm like, and I did go to law school, but like I formed an LLC. It took me like an hour on the internet. It's just a couple of forms that you send in. So patent stuff, I really don't know. Yeah, ask Patrick on there in the comments. He probably knows more about that than I do. He's an attorney as well. Talking to a lawyer in Ohio. Wow, you're not far away, Kelly. You're close. I'm in Pittsburgh. Your body can't take the highs and lows of fake sugar. I know, man. I know. I do need to I'm going to start buying the carbonated water. You're right. What is a red flag law? I worked at the IRS. Did I miss whether a federal red flag law is constitutional? Most states also have court records. I have my wife had 2 knee and is destroyed. Parts are all recalled. Wow. You got to talk to someone, Eric. Here's my thought off the top of my head is if those parts were regularly and medically accepted at the time, it's probably not medical malpractice because, the doctors may not have done anything wrong because they were acting, within the bounds of negligence at that time in history. However, there may be a product's liability parts are all recalled. That may be a products liability case. If I were you, I'd reach out to a med mal attorney or an attorney who does products liability. I did products liability on the defense side for a while. I used to defend companies that distributed asbestos. So I was defending power plants, steel mills, and companies who sold products to steel mills. She's in with an attorney. She wanted to ask you if it's viable. It may well be. Absolutely. It's, yeah, I mean, products liability can be brought under a negligence. So duty, breach, causation, damages, and or strict liability on products liability. Really all you have to do is prove causation. If they had knowledge that the product was defective whenever it was being used, then you're in like Flynn. That could be a lot of money. There's attorneys who specialize in that. Yeah, sometimes you can go after the entire product chain. So you can go after manufacturer, supplier, distributor, possibly even the hospital itself. It's really going to depend on what they knew at the time to a certain degree. But yeah, I would speak to an attorney about that. Yeah, Pat's right. Absolutely, could be viable. Hey, Pat, when you gonna come on the show with me next week? Next Wednesday? You'll be our special guest attorney, SoCal man. Yeah, man. Next week, next Wednesday. It could be a quick settlement. Could be a long one. Could be a quick one. I'll tell you. Yeah, and look, next week I'm gonna have Pat on. We're gonna have a beer night. So Pat, 8:00 Wednesday next week, man, come on over. It'd be a beer night. Absolutely. Absolutely. Knock me off the Diet Coke and the fake sugar for a day or two. Yeah, that's some good advice to find somebody who, on patents, find somebody who's been through it, because again, you can do it on your own. You can do trademarks, copyrights, patents. All of that stuff is not too complicated, but it's going to take you some time. But the fact is, with the internet nowadays, watch a couple YouTube videos on it, and go from there. I mean, all the paperwork's online. I'm sure about that. Okay, they have firearm enhancements in your state. We got 10 to 20 life here in Florida. Yes, Chris, there are firearm and there are deadly weapon enhancements in Pennsylvania. So, and firearms certainly qualify. So it depends on exactly what you're charged with. I don't know the exact numbers, but yeah, I mean, committing a crime with a firearm is gonna aggravate your sentence if and when you are ultimately convicted. Just the presence of a firearm is going to make your case a lot. Thanks, Pat. Glad you're enjoying the show. Won't make a move, Kelly. Look, Kelly, here's what I would do, Kelly, because I designed a product and I was selling it on Amazon. I actually sold every single one of them. But the problem was my profit margin was too small. I've decided to put my money into some other businesses. I'm doing, like, I own some properties in real estate, etc., focusing on my law practice. Anyway, Kelly, my advice is watch some YouTube videos on it. I mean, how do I get a patent? How do I get a patent? Read some articles on getting patents in your state, in Ohio. Try to get a sense for how encompassing it is as far as the paperwork is concerned. Then you're right. Find somebody through social media, perhaps, who's done a patent on their own without an attorney. And after you speak to all them, then maybe talk to an attorney, or get a free consultation with a lawyer. Okay. They're going to try to sell you during that consultation. Okay. They're going to try to sell you, but just get off the phone. Just be like, well, if you don't have the money, you don't have the money, but I request a free consultation. I'm giving free legal advice today. I do free consultations all the time. Client doesn't hire me, so be it. How can you protect yourself and your property from drones? I do not know any drones besides the airport ones. This is off the top of my head. You do have an expectation of privacy for a certain degree of airspace above your property, but when it gets so high, you no longer are going to have a lot of legal rights there. It's going to be hard to protect, your outdoor property. I mean, what can you do? How do you protect yourself and your property from drones? I don't know any drone laws besides the airport ones. You can erect a massive structure over every inch of your property. Honestly, Taze is right. I don't know if you can. A shotgun, right? Sniper rifle. Just be careful. Just be careful. But I do believe that you have a property. You're going to have a certain amount of property interest in airspace, generally or directly above your property. Like, let's say you have a house, 20 feet above your house, but beyond that, no. I think there are actually laws on that. How about, I don't know if maybe everybody saw this in the news. I thought this was fascinating. The United States has had that tit for tat with Iran. I don't think it's going to turn into anything. I think it's all about negotiating. I don't think it's going to turn anything, major or serious. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. Anyway, if you were watching the news, because Iran had shot down, I believe, a United States drone, something along those lines, and then the United States retaliated by taking down one of their drones. Now, what I missed in the headlines, because I saw that in the headlines, and I can't remember, I was watching someone's YouTube channel. The United States did not actually shoot down Iran's drone. They jammed it. So this drone was flying along, and, our military, whether it's using radio waves or whatever pulses or waves that they use, jammed that drone and took it down. They didn't physically attack it at all. I thought that was fascinating. So I guess what I'm saying is there may be technology out there for you to disrupt the signal and or the electronics of a drone without using a sniper rifle, which might get you in trouble. I know a man that shot one down because it was flying over when his daughter was in the pool. The judge ruled on his side because it was an invasion of privacy and kind of stalking. Yeah, exactly, man. I believe that it is, depending on the circumstances. I mean, if someone's just floating a drone along, at a couple hundred feet above the air, the courts probably aren't going to have a problem with it. But yeah, you're going to have a privacy interest in around the curtilage of your home. And, the curtilage is essentially going to be your property. And yeah, you have a limited, but you do have a degree of privacy interest, even in the outdoor area of your house. So if something creepy is going on, like this guy who shot it down because his daughter was out, you got a good shot. There's something you can do. I would just say, I don't know, trees, I guess. Right? I mean, we could plant trees. I don't know. That's unsatisfactory. Are civilians an agency of the United States government? My understanding, speakeasy, no, they are not. You may be a citizen of the United States, but you're in the United States, but you're not an agent. Fringe Files. I stopped by your channel. We need to talk. Taze, yeah, I think so. We live in the South, so that probably helped a little bit too. Yeah, I think most judges would probably side with that, honestly. I mean, yeah, if you're in an urban area, they might have different thoughts on that. The more rural it is, the more you're probably going to have a shot with doing that. Fringe Files, yeah, we need to do something, you and I. Yeah. So how about get this story, guys? About and Patrick, you may remember this. So about 10 years ago, well, 2019, about 7 years ago, I had a blog on Google. I had a Google blog, and I monetized it through AdSense. And I told, a couple of my friends that it was monetized through AdSense. I mean, there were probably 10 people, and they were all my friends who were actually reading my blog at that time. Anyway, what happened was one of my friends went on the blog and started clicking on it ridiculously, and Google banned my AdSense account. Okay, this was I think 2012, so 7 years ago. Google banned my AdSense account. So now I'm trying to turn monetization on my YouTube channel because I have reached the limit. Pat may remember that. Anyway, I've reached my limit. I've broken through. I have enough subscribers and enough viewing hours to apply for monetization, but I'm banned. And Google won't let me do it. And the reason, I know, right? And I filed an appeal, and I haven't heard from them, and I don't know. It may never come. Whatever. I don't want to have to watch what I say. I mean, I regulate what I say anyway to a certain degree, but I don't want to have to always think about that. But I did. The funny thing is, monetization comes with a bunch of little tricks that you can do that now I can't do because I can't become a partner. Like you're called like a program partner. So I can't post advance notices. I don't believe that I can. We can't do super chat, things like that. And again, it's not a big deal, but it pissed me off. And I'm hoping that Google will listen to my appeal, but I don't know or think that they ultimately will, because they just don't care enough. But on that note, I set up a Patreon. I'd love to do this more often. I do have some people who are helping me out on the Patreon. But if I get some donations, I get some Patreon, it will allow me to dedicate more time to making videos and doing video content like this. I mean, you can do $1, you can do a $2 donation. And you don't have to donate at all. No matter what, I'm going to keep doing this, and it's gonna stay free to everybody. But I would just bring that up in case somebody, they might want to give me. You might want to support the show. It will allow me to have some more time. Can you explain why a golden fringe border on an American flag in the courtroom means maritime jurisdiction? Eric, I'm gonna come up. I'm gonna figure that out. I am going to figure that out. The seal of the court. It's the funny thing with a lot of the sovereigns that I see is, they think walking into the court area itself, it's like magic. It's like, oh, you cross this border, like you're submitting to the jurisdiction of the court. Like, dude, you're just walking closer so they can hear you. I mean, and the reason I know it's ridiculous is because there's some courtrooms that I have been in, which is literally just a room and a couple of chairs and a judge sitting in the middle of the room. Okay. Walking past that barrier in a courtroom is meaningless within the law. It's just there to make the room itself functional. If you need a lawyer, would you get a discount for professional courtesy? Yeah, I would. I would, because number one, I do business with a lot of attorneys. So I have like four or five family law attorneys I could text right now. I know multiple personal injury attorneys, criminal attorneys. And honestly, if I called somebody up and I told them I was an attorney, they would give me their time for free. And I do the same thing. It's a professional courtesy. That's all. Joinder cannot be wrought. Hi there. Finally got you live, but I'm so busy. I'm busy. I'm here from the Fugal fam. Thanks for joining me, Angela, from the Fugal fam. Things are going well over there. Dex was in here earlier, actually. He posted up at the beginning. I got to drop in. I got to give them another call. They're up so late, and I'm on the East Coast, man. I'm up so late. Yeah, Mass One. I do need to give someone else moderator. I will. Taze is in here a lot. I'm probably actually, you know what? I'm gonna give him. He's a moderator now. It's just, and most honestly, like, I mean, if I see the trolls, I just knock them out. That's all. I block them immediately, and it hasn't been too bad, at least not today. Fugal, there's a channel I did a guest appearance on, Marfugal News and Marfugal TV. It's a gentleman named Adam. He talks about the news. He covers the news. He covers news stories that you're not going to see everywhere. He does a call-in show. He's got a lot of police, law enforcement, attorneys, different individuals calling in really to just chat about the news and, the current state of what's going on in America and in the world. Check it out. Marfugal News. And, I think he has one called Marfugal News and Marfugal TV. Those guys are super cool. Their audience is great. Everybody considers everybody else the family. Very nice call-ins. Really polite and a lot of fun. My wrench isn't driving. It's traveling. I cannot see anything other than my own comments. Really? Eric, you can only see soft sits are funny and fascinating at first, then they become annoying, and then you realize how dangerous they are, and now they just make me angry. Yeah, man, that's the scary thing is how dangerous they can really be. I don't know what's going on with that, Eric, with the comments. I haven't done anything on my end. Yeah, I felt the same way about sovereign citizens as they were fascinating to me. I mean, the thing, I probably find them fascinating because I'm a real nerd and I studied political science and I've read, a lot of political philosophy. And if you don't, honestly, I mean, if you don't know or understand the history and evolution of government, I mean, over the centuries, and why it exists, then you kind of you can see, I guess, some points in this that the sovereign citizens make. But the bottom line is you're born into a society and society functions on rules. And it's true. You didn't wake up one day and sign a contract with the United States government or the government of whatever city you were born into, but you were born into that and you are going to have to apply, you are going to have to follow their rules. The funny thing is, what are the alternatives? Like there are countries that don't have governments. I mean, you can go there. I mean, it's not, you got to have some sort of government. I mean, I'm for government providing, certain basics and being limited in many senses of that word. But I'm not an anarchist. I do believe that we need government. Try Untold Story of the United States by Oliver Stone. I'm still confused on the Moors, where their basic philosophy is based on. Yeah, the capital letters is just, I think that's just something somebody thought up. The Moors, I was watching some of the Moor stuff and they have their own map of the world of how the world existed for 100 years ago. And it's the wildest map that you've ever seen. And it's sort of like flat Earth. So yeah, I mean, I'm more or less libertarian. I mean, yeah, that is where that's kind of where I would draw I'd put myself. We feel my niece is 10 is very serious. I'm not wanting. Okay, what can my sister do about the fact her children don't want to see their father anymore, but they just got a divorce, and of course he has them every other weekend. Angela, you got to go into court. I know it looks like it's out of a token. You got to go into court. So they should. It sounds like they have a custody order. She can apply for a modification of the custody order. And you bring up the drinking problems to the court and allow the judge to make a call. Judges can order. I've had family law cases. Judges can order people to go to rehab. Judges can order random drug tests. Now, those aren't as effective with drinking. If you're not on probation, they're not going to come to your house and breathalyze you. But there are some stuff that the courts can do if she feels that drinking problem is really putting them in danger. She should file for a modification. Corporations, new constitution. Yeah, what I've found with the sovereign citizens is they each have. I actually did a video I'm going to release tomorrow or Friday. I analyzed an interview with a sovereign citizen. Anyway, they all have different theories. There's 3 or 4 major theories. The Moors have their own theory. There's one theory that the United States Constitution itself is not legitimate. We're still operating under the Articles of Confederation. Then there's a theory that the Constitution is legitimate, but it's not being applied correctly, and that many of the laws in the Constitution don't actually apply to the states. That doesn't get you over the hurdle of state law. But that's the problem with the sovereign citizens is that none of the theories are really coherent when you wrap them all together. And it's funny too, because they want to rely on Supreme Court and court rulings, but then they want to talk about the illegitimacy of the court. Well, if the court's illegitimate, how can you rely on what they are actually saying? I actually thought about writing a book on sovereign citizens. What I saw, there's no books out there on the sovereign citizen movement, which I thought was interesting. And I thought about doing it. I just don't know if I want to I think I get a lot of hate for that. I might get death threats. I'd try to do it in an objective manner. What do you guys, would anybody be interested in something like that? I was thinking of maybe doing like a smaller book and then seeing how it goes from there. They think, you buy an advanced copy. Tripoli was actually here stateside, for crying out loud, man. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, there's other groups out there the funny thing with the funny thing, and I've addressed this in some of my videos with the Moors. Look, if anybody has a weird sovereign citizen argument to make, it's the Native Americans, okay? Because, at least in regards to this country, their land was taken away from them. So if anybody has an argument that the federal government, the laws of the United States don't apply to them, it's them. But a lot of black people do as well, because a lot of their ancestry comes from slavery, and they were brought here against their will. The thing is, how far back are you going to go? How far back are you going to go? It's over, and countries have been conquered, and people have been enslaved, and for centuries. Whose country was whose when you go back far enough. It gets pretty crazy. David Windmill, the father knows. I would definitely address him, Eric. I'd definitely address him. I thought about just doing making it pretty basic, but talking about again, there's 3 or 4 main theories, maybe 4 or 5 main theories. You have the Moors, you have the Moors, you have the non-constitutionalists, then you have the constitutionalists, and then there's groups that break down in there.
I did read up on that Act of 1871. I'll have to look at it again. I can't remember exactly what my opinion was on that. It's my job is crazy. I've been writing this a complaint for one of my clients for the last 2 days, and it's like law school. And even as you practice attorney, you dump all this information in one ear, and it all comes out the other ear, and that's what law school is like. But I put so much information, I churned so much information in, that I lose things. Like I read up on that Act of 1871, it just didn't stick with me. I have to read up on it again. So, there's so many different theories out there. I thought about just doing like a short, it'd be like a PDF style book where I address it. I might charge like a couple of bucks for it. If you subscribe on my Patreon, you get it for free. I thought it'd be fun. And I might even put like some cartoons in there, and little comic strips. It'd be fun. And you also learn a little bit. I just think some of the sovereigns might come after me. I don't know what would happen. So, is there anything legally I can do to get off a co-signed student loan that I did for a friend 10 years ago? And I don't know, Nicole. I have no idea. I'm sure that as you know, student loans are monsters as far as debt return on that lien. You can't get rid of them in bankruptcy. As a cosigner, you may have some different rights. Pat, maybe you have an opinion on this. As a cosigner on a student loan and the person stopped paying, you may have to sue that individual. So like they sue you and then you sue them. The first thing to start would be on the paper that you signed. You want to read those. They might not like that, but they're usually nonviolent, I thought. I don't know. Yeah, she's probably on the hook. I agree. They might not like that. They're usually nonviolent. Yeah, most of them are. Most of them are. I may do it again. Like my goal would be to not to go on there just to bat, but just to summarize it, because there's really nothing out there. There's no books, there's no publications on it. I was actually surprised. Pat, you coming on next week? There arose Little Italy, Chinatown, but the Indians were forced on and blacks were given the inner city. Multiculturalism is a funky endeavor. Sovereigns. All right. Next week, everyone who's still here, next week, my colleague, friend, fellow attorney, Patrick Johnson's going to come on the show together. We're going to drink some beers. It's going to be at the same time, 8:00 on Wednesday. Pat has more experience. So I do a lot of criminal, personal injury, employment type law. Pat has a lot of experience. He has more experience in a lot of the consumer questions that I get. So consumer debts, consumer protection. He's a very experienced civil litigator. So general lawsuits. He can talk about the personal injury stuff, products, liability, and two lawyers together, no, the house won't automatically burn down. We'll just be able to answer more of your questions. And in case you were wondering, real estate, consumer, and civil litigation. That's right. He worked at a real estate firm. So he might be able to answer a lot of the questions that I can't, and we'll have some fun doing that. Beer is better for you than diet soda. I know, man. Listen, I got you. Diligent enough for have the attention span to follow through. Kelly, yeah, you're right. I get your credit is taking a hit with that one. I've already, my videos on sovereigns, I've gotten some pretty crazy comments and some threats like of physical violence already. I don't take it serious. It's just, people say whatever behind this stuff. I don't worry about it. She's going to look into the paperwork. I filled out the papers to get my name off. They needed a diploma, which he never graduated that college, just took one semester. Hey, maybe you can get out of have a drinking game. 2 drunk lawyers has to be hilarious. I'll do that on a weekend. On a Wednesday, I'm only going to have a couple of beers. But yeah, I'm starting to hit a wall here too, everyone. It's free speech. Shaking my head. People get so butthurt. Yeah, listen, Maswin. I know. I mean, trust me, I know. I mean, most of it's online. It's BS. Whatever. I'll probably do it. My main deterrent to doing it is finding the time to do it. But my law practice has been getting better. And if YouTube would monetize me, maybe it would help me a little bit. But yeah, I'm actually hiring an assistant next month, and I'm moving my office. It's going to help my law practice. I'm going to be a little leaner, a little meaner, and more productive. 2 lawyers, 2 lawyers, 1 topic. Well, Eric, as long as it's a family-friendly topic, right? We want a family-friendly topic. My buddy's a doctor at Children's Hospital, same age, class of 01. You're 36. I am 37, Mass. I graduated I just had my birthday. And I graduated in 2000 from high school. Guess it's going to be a PG show next week. Well, it ain't going to be 2 lawyers, 1 topic. I'll tell you that. But if we have some beers, yeah, maybe we'll start swearing. I try to I like to swear. I just try to keep it PG because, look, I got to answer to the man, and YouTube is the man right now. And I'm trying to get monetization, and the more F-bombs I drop, and once they monetize me, I'll start dropping those F-bombs. Your birthday's August 10th, and you went to Carrick. I went to Keystone Oaks. I grew up in Dormont, and my birthday's July 29th. So it was just a few weeks ago. Your birthday, Matt, wait a minute. Your birthday is on Friday, or is that Saturday? Awesome. Well, happy birthday. Credit was at 810. Now it's at 760. Damn, they hammered you. Anybody else have any questions? Someone asked me my opinion on false flags. I have literally, I mean, I don't know who on here is a fan of Joe Rogan. Okay, I like the Joe Rogan show. You know, Joe Rogan, he used to have a show on conspiracy theories. And he was like, I've read about every single conspiracy theory. I too have read about every conspiracy theorist. Math one. Look, I don't have. I mean, here's honestly what I believe about false flags. I believe that they used to happen a lot more than they do now, and that's because, you know, back in the day, it was much easier for a government to no. I'm about to go away, Mass. We can talk about this next week. Why don't you save it for next week? We can talk about it with Pat. Okay. Hey, what's up? Hello, you're on.
Yeah, man, I know, real fast. I'm a huge conspiracy theorist. It'll take 1 second. But that's one thing that'll definitely make you will not even, you'll get shadowed man on here for talking about that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I got you, man. Then I'll probably steer away from it. The only point I was trying to make is, you know, people were asking me about false flagging, et cetera, is, you know, if you look back in history, do I think that there were staged attacks in order to get this country and other countries into wars? Absolutely. I do believe, though, that they're much less common now. I really do.
Well, yeah, do you know about the rights that that Hitler did?
No. What was that?
I don't know. That's one common one of the oldest ones in the 1930s or something. That he burned his own place down or something, blamed it on someone else. But dude, like a lot of this other stuff though, I'm just gonna say, try to speak the the Second Amendment type stuff. That stuff is iffy in my opinion. Like the one that just happened, the woman said there was 3 active people, and the mainstream media said there was 1. There's a lot of witnesses. The one in Texas, there was a lot of witnesses. They seen 3 people in black. Mainstream media said that it only was 1 guy. So that's I'm a big, huge Second Amendment advocate. You know, so that's the ones that but in the wars and stuff, a lot of them, like Bay of Pigs, and there's the one look up USS Liberty, how Israel bombed the USS Liberty.
Oh yeah. I read about that one. Yeah, I read about that one.
There's a ton. A lot of them were started. A lot of wars are started on false flag. But these things, like school shootings, they never used to happen.
Matt, I don't want to really talk about the school shootings. So, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you about the historical stuff, because I like history. We could talk, the Gulf of Tonkin or whatever. I don't want to get into anything about present day. Politics are it's just too charged. It's just too charged. So I just want to avoid it. Yeah, I just want to avoid it.
Because the thing about history, there was Operation Northwoods was from when Kennedy was in office, and that thing looked he turned it down. It looked exactly like 9/11. Operation Northwoods, look it up. They wanted to fly planes in the buildings when Kennedy was in the office.
I got you, man.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I was just, listen, I was just trying to respond to somebody who, and I do have some quick thoughts on it and so.
So man, I feel you, man. Don't kill Joe Walcott. That's the worst thing you can talk
right,
about.
Right.
Man, really. But I'm a freaking conspiracy theorist, not I studied them like no other, man. But thanks for having me on. I definitely won't miss next week, man. Thanks.
All right, next week will be fun.
Yeah. I'm gonna listen in for the last few minutes.
Okay. You're not?
Peace, brother.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thanks for calling in, Mass. Again, I didn't want to get into it. I just, I have some opinions based on the historical stuff. And I'm under no illusions that the United States government, and frankly, the governments of all countries, won't pull some crazy shit to get some shit done. I like to read I like to read about ancient Roman history, and the same stuff would happen back then. They would manufacture incidents that they could use as a pretext to go to war. I mean, that stuff's as old as time. But I'm gonna head. I'm pretty tired today, so I'm gonna call it a night. Thank you, everybody. Lawyers who specialize in legal malpractice. Yes, they do, Taze. I had to drop in for that one. There's usually not that many of them, but there are, at least like in my city, in Pittsburgh. There's a couple of guys, and that's almost all that they do. Attorney Joe Palmetto signing off. Everybody, thank you for coming in. Next week, it's gonna be the Joe and Pat show. We went to law school together. We're gonna drink some beers. We've also drank a lot of beers together. We could even just, we can mix in the legal talk with maybe some funny stories that will give you some insight on him and I. But thank you, everybody, for listening. Eric, thanks for calling in. Thanks for coming. Mass One, thank you. I'm gonna sign out, everybody. Have a good one.